Well, I'm back. Uh, you know, I think I miss Bible studies. I miss the discussions in Bible studies, talking about ideas related to faith. And so I think that's why I do these things. If you and I met every week for Bible study, it'd probably satisfy me, and I'd maybe help you out as well. But anyway, today I want to talk about the doctrine of the Trinity. Now, this isn't a heavy getting into heavy theological stuff. I just want to talk about the big picture that personally I have struggled with, I believe, most of my life. So I thought maybe if I struggle with it, that maybe some of what I've struggled with might help you to get a different grasp on it yourself. I grew up in a broad Christian community, and when I say that, I mean, most of my friends, most of the people I knew went to some kind of church. It might have been a Baptist or Church of God or whatever, but certainly Methodist. And so during that time, I didn't get a very good grasp of the doctrine of the Trinity. Now, uh, I came out of Methodism. Methodism came out of Anglicanism. Anglicanism came out of the Roman Catholic Church. So there's a lot of things that are sort of Roman Catholically in the Methodist Church. And so we have doxologies and creeds and things that we repeated. And certainly this idea of a Trinity was there. I remember going to confirmation when I was 12 years old or so, and certainly the Trinity was discussed there. But I just never really grasped it for decades. I recall going to having a class with a seminary professor who he was brilliant. I mean, he could really explain things great in such interesting ways. And I remember him talking about the Trinity, and I thought, right, that's great. I'm going to go back and do a Bible study at my local church on that. And so I did, and it was a disaster. I got into it and I realized I didn't know what I was talking about. Could not explain what this guy has explained. Now, this is typical of probably all of us, if not you, most of the rest of us, in that we hear all kind of things that sound good to us. Maybe it's a politician talking to us, maybe it's a legal expert talking to us, maybe it's a news commentator talking to us, or the preacher talking to us, and okay, it sounds good, we're good with it, we'll accept it, okay. But if you can't explain what those people said, then you don't understand it. That's as simple as it gets. And that was my problem. I never had to explain it, except, of course, I had that one time I attempted to, and I was a fool. So it was embarrassing. So for decades, I didn't worry about how the Trinity worked. I accepted it, that it must be so. The idea of God in three persons, which was, in our doxologies and stuff, it just sat there unexplored. Since most of my life was focused on how I could be a good boy and make it to heaven as a good boy, my religious tradition didn't push back on me about that, and it had a very strong what we called the social gospel, which was all about how you did good things to other people, and out of all that goodness you were doing, most people who are buying into this social gospel are thinking, all right, they're going to get something out of it. This is really an early version of what we see going in a more radical way as social justice. That's really where it comes out of, those kind of thoughts. That I'm going to go do something good for the community, and you know, doing good is what's good. So I didn't really it wasn't critical for me to have a grasp on the Trinity as long as I was being good and doing good. But the question is not how a man can become God when we talk about the Trinity, but it's about how God became man. And I'll get into that. Mormons think they can become gods. And they don't stand alone by that. I mean, there's there's various contemporary occult philosophies, excuse me, that think that they can ascend to godhood. This is an ancient thing, and of course, all the way back into the religions of the ancient world, which these we call them myths, but they call them reality. Called it reality. There were people in their narratives. You can read them, they were men who became gods. So that's not an unheard of idea. It's all around you, and it's really more there than you probably understand because people don't say it quite that way. But the reason is that humanity is transactional. If your dog is your pet, that's great. You love your dog. He's your best friend. When your dog eats your cow, that's not a transaction, and that's your source of food. That's a transaction you're not interested in having. And so you kill your dog because you don't want him to eat another cow. And it's dog for cow, right? Eye for an eye, dog for a cow. Humanity has existed that way forever. Wipe out, if something is a problem, the best way to deal with the problem is get rid of the problem, right? If the problem supports you, if something supports you, I keep thinking about Al Capone, how he loved his mother, etc. Well, his mother loved him. He loved his mother. If his mother hadn't loved him, who knows what he'd done to his mother. Right? But humanity wants to be in control of their transactions, and most make some kind of sacrifice or bargain with their God. Okay, that's the way So I know people who went to war, and war was a terrifying thing, and they prayed to the heavens, "Hey God, if you get me out of here alive, I'll believe in you and serve you." And I've sort of watched that. I'm not really impressed with some of the people I see. I'm not condemning you. That doesn't mean you haven't grown as a Christian if that's who you are. But I've seen some who really didn't seem to have any. They were just at church. That's where they were. They were keeping their end of the bargain. And of course, it was better for them to be at church and maybe being exposed to something. Although some of the churches I've been in, I'm not sure it was helpful. Anyway, so the question is not how does man become God, but the question is how and why does God become man? So for Christians, the Bible expresses that God makes covenants with humanity. He's the one in charge of it. The humans don't draw up the covenant. The human doesn't come. The Israelites didn't go to Yahweh and say, "Hey Yahweh, we like you. You're a cool guy. We'd like to make a deal with you where you cover us, protect us, and provide us with food and whatnot, and we'll give you some cows." Okay. In fact, if you go back to Cain and Abel, Cain didn't give his first; he just gave some. Okay, and God in the Old Testament says, "You give me your first." God is ahead of everything. Okay, humanity, if we got our way, we're not giving the first. You may not be giving your first. We give leftover. Do you give leftover after you've paid all of your taxes and all of your medical expenses and et cetera, or do you give what comes off what's first? God wants what's first. Now, that's about tithing, and there's other, the point about tithing is God wants a cheerful giver. That's a little bit different than the sacrifices that the Israelites and the Hebrews made. So, but is it the best? That's what God wants. First, the best. So, for Christians, the Bible expresses that God makes these covenants, and He he expresses them in his own terms, and you have probably many times have you read or heard the Old Testament read, you hear God saying, this is the simplest, most straightforward one, I will be your God and you will be my people. He's not saying, hey, if you'd like to be, I'm here. If you want me as your God, all cool. No, he's saying, I will be your God and you will be my people. And of course, when they weren't his people and they turned to other gods, they got taken into exile, etc. Right? When they decided to go out and fight an enemy by themselves, instead of have him tell them how to set up the battle, it was a disaster. God is the one in control. So I've accepted that God is the one who makes the covenant, but only recently have I started to understood what that includes, to get the big picture, as I say. So, first of all humanity is fallen. If you're capable of satisfying your creator God, then you're not human. Okay, because we're not capable of doing that. We've got imperfect thoughts, we do imperfect deeds. So if you think that you are able to satisfy God, you're mistaken. For decades, I was personally remorseful that Jesus went to the cross for me. So I accepted that Jesus went to the cross, but I was remorseful about it. And I would, and having, if we had a discussion about it, I would say something to the extent of, he didn't need to do that for me. I mean, I could accept that Jesus might take 40 lashes for me. I've done enough wickedness that maybe 40 lashes for a whole lifetime of my wickedness. But I really felt bad that Jesus he died for my sin, for me. Because I really didn't understand what it was all about, right? Obviously. Now I'm thankful that he died for my sins. Very thankful, because I know I'm a wicked person. It doesn't matter whether you think I'm a pretty nice guy or not. It doesn't matter whether I like the guy I see in the mirror for the most part or not. Deep down, there's things that are sinful because they aren't following God. And for me, my major prayer every evening is, guide and direct me so that I walk in your way, because I'm a pitiful, miserable guy. Anyway, so years later, I accepted that I wasn't such a pretty good guy, and that I was broken and imperfect. And that's important for all of us to do. Now, in recent years, I moved away from considering that Jesus was just a great human teacher, and that he was truly a sacrifice for me and for all humanity who would accept that sacrifice. Now, a lot of people think that, well, he just died for everybody and that's it. Well, he did die for everybody, but if you're not following him, then he didn't die for you to go that way. He died for you to follow him. So we can walk off into our sinful future and ignore God all we want to, and we'll end up, according to the Bible, in hell. So finally got that message. So the thing about it, though, is that he is a sacrifice, and he is not just a sinless man, as I often would grasp as being what was going on. He wasn't a sinless man. He was he was God. The sacrifice had to be perfect, and meaning sinless. But I continued for a long time to miss this big point. So I'm finally getting to it. So Jesus, and this is the big point, Jesus is God. Only God is sinless. Only God is sinless against himself. You and I are sinful. We we offend God. We can't help it, okay? Because we're human and we've fallen. Our humanity's fallen. All humanity has sinned against God. Jesus is not a special human. Only he has the capability of presenting, that is, God has the capability of presenting part of himself as totally human. Does that make sense to you and I? No. And this is probably my problem, is that I wanted to be able to make sense of everything. You know, A plus B is C, right? Well, what we have here in the Trinity is A plus B equals C, but I have no idea what A, B, and C, I don't know whether, let's put it the way. I like a formula that is 1 plus 2 equals 3. I like that formula, okay? But when I get into a complicated algebraic formula, it's a lot harder to understand. And sometimes, if you're an physicist and you want to explain something about that to me, it's going to just go over my head, right? I just am not grasping it. Now, maybe if I spent all kind of time trying to figure it out, I might finally comprehend it. Well, this is the Trinity. It's beyond our total comprehension. It's something that, just like an algebra, I used to have a problem in math. My teachers, and I'd tell the teacher, I don't understand. I don't understand. And my teacher would say, oh, Mark, we know you can do this. And I don't understand. Well, what I didn't understand, they were always confident. My teachers were always confident I could handle it. Why? Because when I took the test that we took every few years, I was always scoring high in math, or as good in math as I was in verbal, right? It was almost always, all the way through, even my SATs, my MSATs, GSAT, GRE, yeah. Whatever test I took, I basically scored just about the same. So I could understand. I just somehow wanted, it was more of a psychological thing, right? I wanted to really understand. And what I needed to understand is the algebraic equation would give me the answer, not that how and why it did it. Okay, just accept the equation, and that's basically what the Trinity is. Just accept the equation, people. God became man. That's God. So Jesus is God. He's not a teacher. God could have sent, in fact, God sent all kind of prophets. Look, the Muslims think that Jesus was a prophet, right? It's all kind of, Noah was a prophet. Abraham was a prophet. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Zephaniah, whatever. Zechariah. Yeah. Anyway, there's a lot of those kind of names. So there's a lot of prophets. And so you didn't have God. God didn't come to be a teacher. He did teach. And obviously was the best of the teachers, as far as that goes, because he was himself. But Jesus was not a man who became a God. He wasn't born a baby boy like you and me, or girl. And he didn't just grow up until he was 30 years old, and all of a sudden, bingo, something happened. I mean, when John came and that dove happened, or went to John and got baptized, and that dove happened, he was living a human life. He was being totally human. But he was God. He didn't need any of this stuff for himself, except, you might say, he desired, so he didn't need. He desired to have you and me walk with him for eternity. That was the plan. Satan didn't understand what was happening. Satan got skunked, okay? All of a sudden, this baby, who he thought was a human, ends up being something different. It was God, because only God is pure enough, is sinless enough to be able to die for you and my sins. It's the only way it works. So, we see other times when God is incarnate in some form. We see him going to Sodom and Gomorrah, and Abraham trying to deal with him. Now, God I said God makes the covenant. God, you can't deal with God. He doesn't make the deals. You don't make the deals. He's the one that makes the deals. But Abraham was trying to, right? And Abraham saying, well, I don't remember exact numbers, but if there's 50 good guys, then you're not going to kill them all, are you? All right, if there's 10 good guys, you're not going to kill them all. Well, God knew everything was wicked. God was going to wipe everything out because it was all wicked. And God knew that. So he could play this game with Abraham. And maybe that was the whole point, to let Abraham think about it a little bit. Well, let's see. Yeah, there are a lot of bad guys there. Maybe 50 is a little bit high. What about 25? Maybe 25 is a little bit too high. Okay. Anyway, God is incarnate at different times. The wrestling with Jacob, Jacob's ladder story, right? Incarnate. So the narrative with Jesus is the only narrative we see where he was human for 30 years, 33 years. God was human. Finally, the big picture for me, Jesus is not a man at all. Jesus is God. So therefore, I accept this Trinity in a much more solid kind of way. God can do what God wants to do. It doesn't. You can be in there. I watch podcasts all day long. Many of you know this. I share a lot of things. I watch people say all kind of stuff. Arrogant humanity who knows so much. Um, just and they're just too full of themselves to be able to accept it. Now, fortunately, many of us live many years, like me, so far, and I'm imperfect enough. I often say the reason I will live a long time is because I got so much for God to fix. So, so uh, anyway, if you have your own ideas about this, if you think I'm totally crackpot, feel free to say I'm crackpot. Okay, but as I say when I close out most of the time, what I'm all about is finding the truth. And so when I come across something that I think rings true, then I'm going to share it with you. Okay, I'm after truth, and wherever I find it. And so I go through a lot of garbage because I don't want to be lied to by anybody. And so I'll go through the garbage just in case the guy who's supposed to be giving me the good stuff has thrown out something that he didn't like, but that is actually something important to have. So, as I always say, if you're searching for truth, and I hope you do, then all you have to do is pray to God. God, I want to find the truth. That's all I care about. Because God is the truth. And God will show you the truth. I'm very confident of it. Have a good day.